Not pro-life, just explaining. Because it doesn't matter to them, and it makes sense. In their eyes, they are trying to stop homicide. You don't need to care for the victims in order to stop a homicide. If I stop my neighbor from murdering her newborn, do I have to pay for the baby afterwards? Do I owe it for saving its life? Lived my entire life surrounded by pro-lifers. Although I do agree that many of them are pro-fetus, you kinda hit the nail on the head. They truly believe that murder is happening and that they'd do anything to stop that. A couple of the people I've talked to have said that once they stop abortiums, they'd work on the adoption system, but most of them just want to call it a day after the abortions. In my experience, they typically dismiss the concerns you listed as not justifications, maternal morbidity being relatively rare, and they think that newborn adoption is the solution to poor child rearing situations or foster care abuse. Not sure what you mean about stillborn babies, though. OP means that a baby dies during the pregnancy when it's still in the womb. A dead baby needs to be removed. Otherwise the mom can go into toxic shock and die, too. Another situation is when a baby immediately dies after birth, when the mom's body no longer keeps it alive. It happens to babies with severe birth defects. For example, if you already know the baby is not vital, will die during pregnancy or immediately after birth, doctors will recommend to terminate the pregnancy. I live in a very small Midwestern town where the local crisis pregnancy center gives out maternity clothes, baby clothes up to child size 5, gives out free emergency formula, gives parenting classes, gives out cribs, pack-in plays, swings, car seats, other equipment, directs and assists mothers to get SNAP, WIC, TANF, Medicaid and other community resources. They have recently become an actual chain, linking centers all over the lower part of our state. There is a low-key Christian element, but no overbearing preaching and no judgment. BC everybody has problems, makes mistakes. They would like for all the states to have centers like this, and to do what pro-choice PPL are always calling out the pro-lifers to do, giving comfort and support to scared mothers and children. So there are PPL on the pro-life side who do want to help women and babies. It's just a darn shame there aren't more of them. The one in my town has been going for 35 years. That's encouraging. How is your local center funded? I'm curious. Being pro-life is a misnomer. They are actually pro-birth. Exactly this. Sometimes abortions can save the lives of many women giving birth, due to health conditions or other reasons. It's very easy for people to lose sight, or change the meanings of their words to fit their interests. I read it as pro-lifters and contemplated for a while why professional weightlifters have a specific opinion on abortion. Rolling on the floor laughing. As much as they work out, they just can't carry the thought of an unborn baby. Most people would consider killing a person out of pity because they live in an abusive family very immoral. Pro-lifers consider fetuses people. I mean, I'm pro-choice and I consider fetuses people. I just don't think any person has the right to reside in another person's organ. They see a fetus as a living human being. So killing a fetus would be the same as killing a living baby. And you wouldn't buy the family situation is bad. There is no support system. The child will suffer in foster system etc. etc. Excuse if someone killed a baby. Okay, but babies can't cripple or kill their parents just by existing. Childbirth can kill you or cripple you though. So the situations are really not the same at all. Other living humans aren't allowed to possibly kill me or use my organs against my will to live. So even if a fetus is equal to a baby, why would it get special privileges that no one else does? I love all the pro-choice folks making terrible supposed arguments rather than actually waiting for a real answer from a pro-lifer. Real answers would get downvoted because the pro-abortion crowd only argues in strawman. Barney Frank says that a conservative is a person who believes that the right to life begins at conception and ends at birth. It's more about maintaining power. power that has existed over women's bodies for centuries. Conservative ideology calls for this, and maintaining a bunch of other status quos that hurt society. IDK. Pro-lifers I know tend to be against abortions which are willful, i.e. no major complications that would otherwise threaten mother and child. The argument I hear for this is similar to a Good Samaritan Act. If you call an ambulance for a homeless dude, you might condemn him to a life of bankruptcy and poverty with medical bills. Do you still call the ambulance? Haven't heard of any instances of pro-lifers insisting on keeping a pregnancy which complicates and threatens life, so IDK about that. Greater than haven't heard of any instances of pro-lifers insisting on keeping a pregnancy which complicates and threatens life, so IDK about that. There is a state where someone proposed in an anti-abortion bill making it illegal to abort even ectopic pregnancies. Ectopic pregnancies literally are pregnancies that poison and kill the mother before the child can viably be born. This is a pretty bad argument set up on a fallacy that won't lead to any constructive conversation. Ever heard of begging the question? It's a type of circular reasoning. An argument that requires that the desired conclusion be true. Is that their entire anti-abortion premise? Do they not acknowledge potential birth complications or societal failures? Your question completely ignores people who could be personally pro-life but socially pro-choice. Would it be fair argument to ask, why do pro-choice advocates base their entire premise on choice, but fail to acknowledge that anti-abortion is a choice? No, because I haven't proved that pro-choice advocates don't acknowledge anti-abortion as a choice. I can't engage your question because your premise is unsound, misleading, and framed to make a straw man of the opposition. These conversations are societally important and it's paramount that we engage in these discussions from a place of good faith. It is astonishing to me that I had to scroll this far down to find this response. Thank you for bringing a voice of reason to the discussion. You can be against murder and still not want to be obligated to support someone. I'm pro-choice if that matters. I find myself not understanding that point. How are they personally supporting these services if terminating was properly legal? I'm not trying to be rude at all. My understanding is just genuinely limited in this regard. Thanks. Pro-lifers usually don't agree on abortion unless it puts the mother's life at risk somehow. If the parents don't want the kid, there is adoption. So no need to kill the child. Just because I don't think you should be killed doesn't mean I am financially responsible for you. Because it's primarily about subjugation, control of women, poor and religious extremism, then it's about the sanctity of life. It's not about logic. It's about making people angry enough to come to the voting booth without using any critical thinking. I've seen them support the death penalty and be against welfare programs for poor single mothers. I hope you get an honest answer here, because I think they're blatant hypocrites. They are only interested in the fetus. Not mom and not the future of mom and baby. I would argue it's really only about control. Punishment, since they don't support prenatal programs or other maternal support. The same reason they ignore that IVF has the possibility of 4 babies being murdered, if all 6 fertilized embryos take. The doctor won't allow her to carry more than 2 most of the time. I'm going to assume not everyone gets 6 implanted, but I bet they do usually do more than just 2 most of the time. Pro-lifers don't really care about the life, but about control and feeling morally superior. Christians shouldn't care since the Bible says God breathes life into us. You can't take in a breath until you're born. Plus, we should have a separation between church and state. To add to this, IVF is covered by insurance and is being expanded. Insurance is not allowed to cover any part of an abortion in, I believe, all states. Many do. Christians are, statistically, the most likely group to adopt, and Catholic Relief Services comprises the largest non-public provider of social services in the states. I'm not sure if this was an honest question. But if it is, I'm glad that you are willing to listen. You will find some honest answers from pro-lifers in this thread. But you will have to search them in between the pro-Schwaz comments. The short answer is that even someone who endures hell got the right to life. Except, pro-lifers are pushing laws that ban abortion even when the fetus is not viable. Thinking pro-lifers all think the same is a mistake. I would guess many of them believe, in mostly an emotional-driven way, women who need abortions are immoral for having sex outside of marriage. Fetuses are the same as children and abortions are murder. None of these are fully formed ideas and are a stew of feelings. It still amazes me how many pro-lifers are also pro-death penalty. To be fair, you could argue that criminals sentenced to death certainly deserve it more than an unborn baby.